okay. I haven't even hit the button yet, but I know YouTube lags, so I've been a hit okay. And it will tell me that it's going live sometime, about now. So howdy, I'm Matt. Welcome to this live episode on setting up the Eagle Tree Vector in the Harrier wing. Now, I do want to just stress is that this is very much ad hoc. It was only an idea which came to me about 15 minutes ago. Screw it, why don't we just do this live? So as such, we will leave all mistakes in, and we are going to be setting up the Harrier FPV wing together with the Vector. Now, I am going to cover some of the basics-ish with you, and I've got a collection of notes here so that we get on topic very, very quickly. But I am going to make some assumptions that you know how to set up a Tyrannus and some other basic details as well. So with that said, this live episode is literally being recorded live, so we leave all screw-ups in. You will see some live chat going on above my head, so if you can hear us nice and loud and clearly, please do let us know. That will be fantastic. And of course, any questions which you have as we progress along, please feel free to join in and ask away. Right, so with that said, I just want to stress this live episode, and tell you what, why don't we go to the full screen? There we go. So this live episode is not sponsored or endorsed by Eagle Tree Systems in any shape or fashion. In some ways, they might be a little bit mortified, but let's not even go there. Now, on a serious topic, this video is not a conversation for iNav versus the Eagle Tree Vector. If you would like an objective view of the differences between iNav and the Eagle Tree Vector, is that I did a video, funny enough, another live episode with the same hoodie. Hey, my shirt on now, but different episode. There's a link to that in the video description underneath this video. Go and watch that one. If you want to know what the difference is between them, I run through and we have a good old chit chat for an hour. There's lots of questions and stuff going on while we're discussing the differences, because there are subtle differences and there are reasons why you would want to use one over the other. So brilliant. I can see that there's notes on there, and I'm looking to my left because that's where your live chat is. And yes, Hasby, that thing is expensive. I totally agree with you. Conversations about price and comparison are all covered in that other video. So if you want to find out more about the why one's cheaper than the other and why one's potentially better than the other, that is the video for it, and we cover everything in depth there. Now, what else I got on my notes on here? So, screw it, let's get right in here, okay? So, howdy everybody who's joining in, and I'm not going to do like a shout out corner like we did in the coffee chat this morning. We are just going to dive straight in. So, the first thing which we're going to do is that we're going to cover some of the basics. So, I've got my Tyrannus here.
Switch warning, stabilization off, horizon mode, engine off, middle rates.
I have quite a few voice settings on my switches. The main thing is if you've got your goggles down and you accidentally hit one of the switches, if you do...
Return to launch.
Whoa! You know what? You know what's going on with your model. Right, so how have I been to set up my Tyrannus? Very, very simply, I've set this up. If I go into the mixer, okay, that is how I've been to set my mixer up, okay? Nothing special at all. Throttle, aileron, elevator, rudder, 2 switches, and then some sliders, okay, on the side. Nothing special. I am using a L9R receiver, and that receiver has also been bound. So the 2 switches which I've been to set up are the top...
External module, stabilization off.
Okay, the top 2 outermost switches. So I tell you what, so that you get an idea of how and why I've set this up, is that right now they're both pushed back on the premise that if something goes wrong, okay, if I said come here, that would make like sense in your head, wouldn't it? Okay, and that's what makes sense to me in my head. So as such, if I want a model to come home, click, click, both switches to come home to me. It's exactly the same format which I use on iNav as well. Now, before we go through all those steps, is that before we do go click, 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 I want to just walk through the steps. So At the moment, they're pushed back. They're both pushed away, so that I now have full control over the model. There's no stabilization, there's no loiter mode, there's no other features going on, waypoints or something like that. It's au naturel, okay? And that's the kind of mode which you would go and get your model trimmed in with, okay? So I'm going to click this left one.
Stabilize mode.
You've just heard it say stabilize. So what that's going to do, it's going to go and put it in 2D mode, which is stabilized but no hold. So it's not going to hold its head in, it's just going to be stabilized. Okay, so it may just wander off and left and right as it sees fit. Okay, then we have external module, and this is where we combine the top left switch, which is SE, with the top right switch, which is SG. So we now have 2D and hold. Okay, so that is stabilized, but we hold the direction. Okay, the vector will kick in and now hold the height and the direction for you. Okay, which is brilliant because you can point it due south and 2D hold, and well, on the flight line, get your cup of coffee up, get a packet of fags out, have a smoke. You know, you kind of know what I mean. It will just carry on flying in that direction until otherwise instructed, which could be a failsafe, for example. And then the other one I've got on here is
loiter mode.
Loiter mode. Loiter mode is really, really handy. It's one of those things where I may be waiting for somebody else, like Dave, for example, to catch up with me, and I just want the model to loiter. And of course, while I'm waiting for Dave to catch up with me, I want to get me a cup of coffee up and have a drink, and it will just spin. It will just fly in a circle. Loiter. It will loiter over the area. Okay. And the last switch.
Return to launch.
Return to launch. Brown. Something's bad happened, okay? As a heads up, I have only ever used return to launch in anger twice. Once with the vector and once with iNav, and in both instances the model has come home, okay? One was a video transmission issue, and the other one was that I got myself into a stupid spot behind some trees in some dead air, and it really was a last-ditch effort to get it out. And that last one, we were no more than maybe 100, 120 meters away. It was literally, I was thermaling, and I got myself in a stupid position, and it was really, really rough where I was. Model was getting thrown everywhere. Clicked return to home, and the model came home. I was actually very surprised by the abilities of iNav to get me out of that brown problem, because I frankly thought it was going in. So really was last ditch effort, and it got me home. So those are the switches which I've got set up.
Stabilization off.
And now I'll have a damn good chat. Brilliant. So just have a quick look on there. Andy, yes, absolutely. The main difference between the iNav and the Vector is about 120 quid. Absolutely. Again, in the other video where we discussed the differences between iNav and the Eagle Tree Vector, is that, to be brutally honest, I would love vectors in all my models. I don't think anybody who wouldn't want a vector in all their models. It's just cost is the prohibiting factor there. I do have several vectors, and this one, which is in here, was actually lined up for the full-size Sky Hunter. So yes, that build will be delayed. Moving on, let's have a quick look. Mike Hasby says, my question may be a little dumb, but I want to ask you, is stock nickel metal hydride for a Veteranus for using? No. So that's a really good question, actually. So if you're using non-standard modules, is that it was Sir Bruce. Instead of me getting this one out, let me put that back in, because I've got two of these, and you can buy them off Hobby King, and they're really good. They're so good I bought two. So that will give you an indication on what I think of them. Those, I'll put that up on the screen, I'll cover my face. So it's a Lifey 9.9, okay, 1.5 or 1500 mAh pack. You can buy those on Hobby King for not a lot of money. They do fit perfectly in the back of the transmitter, but you do have to get a 2S balance lead, okay, and make that connector up yourself. Okay, that's the downside. You have to make that connector up yourself. Okay, and you make sure you put the wires around the right way around, otherwise you're going to get magic pixie smoke. But those batteries are absolutely fantastic. One negative which I would say is because when your battery warning goes off for this in your transmitter, land immediately. No screwing around. Get that model on the ground as fast as possible because these Lifey batteries, they're just like lipos. They fall off a cliff. Okay, so you'll want to set your battery voltage alarm a little bit higher. Okay, I think mine's at 9.6 volts, and very quickly after that, your model will fall out the sky. So do go very careful. And what a fantastic question! Right, let's have a look. And I'm just getting, again, you've probably seen the chat which is going along this side, and I'm just taking a look myself. So, right, with that said, let's plow on. Now, I'm sure I've only got the one web camera set up, so instead of me trying to like hold the wing up to the camera, okay, that's not really going to work. So what I'm going to do is go back to the standard one. I'm going to turn my head off. There we go. So I've turned my head off, and let's put that picture up there. Okay, so this is the what do we call it? Have I got on here? Right, there we go. Okay, so this is the Reptile Harrier S1100. So we're going to talk at the start of the top up here. This is the L9R, and you'll notice that we've got normal wires, and then we got an orange wire. So the normal wire, which has got positive, negative, and white for signal, is S-bus. So I'm using S-bus as an input to the vector. This orange wire is a special one because the L9R has a separate output for RSSI, and that cable goes round there, around here, and then you'll see it being popped in here to the vector. Okay. Now, as far as power goes, I'll connect my battery in here. The vector does come with a current sensor. You will see that I've actually got Dean's connectors on here. It's because there was a cell on the vectors which had the Dean's connectors. So I soldered and made up on my own and saved myself about 20 quid. It's worked fine. And then we've got the power cable coming in. So the idea with the current sensor is that it interrupts the power supply from say the battery which we've got up here, and it goes in, so you plug your battery in and goes through there. That does provide power for not only the vector but also your video transmitter and your FPV camera and the rest of the devices and your receiver, and the GPS unit. Okay, but then the power then carries on through. Now, this is actually a twin motor model, so I do have a Y lead going on back here, and there's a bit of a wiring nest back there, but all it does is basically run power to that motor and run power to the other motor at the back as well. Also looking in here, as far as the FPV setup goes, is that we've got a Runcam Owl Plus actually in the nose, which is just sat there. That power cable, that video feed comes in, goes in here, and then goes into the vector. And now all the connectors on the vector are really well labelled. Okay, in short, you really can't go wrong with setting it up, and we'll speak about the manual in a moment. And then this cable here and this plug which we've got just here, can I zoom in? There. That plug which I've got just there, it goes onto the video transmitter, which I've not connected because I won't be setting up the FPV as part of this. Well, we'll do the on-screen display, but we will just assume that it works. Now, this whole wiring mess, bird's nest is the word which I'm looking for, is the connections. Okay, now you'll see on here, so you've got those three connectors there, 1, 2, 3, that's the S-bus in. Okay, so that goes round and connects to the L9R. Then you have rudder, aileron, elevator, and then throttle. Okay, now I do not know off the top of my head which way I need these elevons setting up, and we'll be doing this together as part of the setup. And also, the one other thing for us to point out is the GPS module, which is this funny little cable which goes round in a circle and then connects up on the front of there. One thing which I really do like about the Eagle Tree Vector, besides most of the features and functions in there, and I love the on-screen display, it is unparalleled, in short, for the quality of what you can do with the on-screen display, is that it also provides, this power module also provides the power for it, but it also provides the power for your video transmitter and your FPV feed. You know it's filtered and you don't end up with noise and stuff on it as well. So yeah, it's all in all, it's actually a very, very good module. The one downside which we can all point our fingers at and go, don't really like, is actually cost. Okay, that is normally the prohibitive factor for choosing a vector, but that is out of the topic of conversation now as far as the vector goes. Now, as far as the vector goes to setup, is that you just type into Google. What do we call it? Sorry, let me click on. That's the wrong one. Aha, there we go, that's the right one back. Eagle Tree Vector Manual, okay, and you'll get this manual up. It's now 120 pages long. If you're using this for fixed wing, you can probably ignore 60 of those because they're to do, well, 40 or so of those pages because they're to do with quads. But they've got lovely, pretty pictures in here. Very, very easy to set up. You'll see on that one there was actually set up using PWM from a receiver rather than S-Bus. But as we can now see on the screen, is that it's exactly what we were talking about. Just that you saw my mess in the model, but that's what we're dealing with here, is that you've got your GPS goes into there, you've got your power supply, where you saw the battery connecting up to that, going round, and then you've got your video transmitter, you've got your camera coming in, you could also have your microphone connected up as well, and then you've got some outputs back here for your ESC or ESCs as in plural for this one, because remember this is twin motor, and then for your servos and things like that. Now, one thing which does catch people is that you do need to power the servo rail for this rear section here, so you will need to connect up an ESC which does have a back to it. Or, as in the case of the wing, which we were talking about a few moments ago, is that I'm using quad ESCs with these motors. As such, they don't have BECs included. So hiding, literally, just down underneath there is a BEC, and then there's a coil underneath there, and I'm actually providing power to the back servo rail from a separate BEC. So that's a 3 amp BEC. Again, we're only dealing with 2 servos and a receiver. It's not like big current draw at all. And there's one other little pin which is definitely worth pointing out, which is the second. Again, it's not very obvious on here. Yeah, it's not standing out, is that you can provide a backup power supply for the Vector, which is exactly what I do in the Mini Talon and also in the XUAV Clouds as well, just as a peace of mind. Brilliant. So I tell you what, I'm going to put my head back on wherever I am. Haha, just like magic. Right. Let me just have a click on there. Derek has been brought up a question. What is the CFG on this thing? So this is talking about the Harrier wing itself. Derek, if you've missed the RC coffee chat, which we did live this morning, I think I need to put my hand up, is that putting a 5200 4S pack in this wing was probably overkill. Okay, I probably exceeded the wing loading, hence why I had so much up trim in it. That is my conclusion. Now sleeping on it for a couple of nights from what we did on the day. That said, that for an overloaded model, it flew bloody well. So CG 50. Well, just keep an eye on it. In short, I went 15mm behind the suggested CG of 280. I went back to like 295mm, and it seemed to still fly fine, but I still had quite a bit of up trim in the model. And again, I think that's purely down to me putting too much battery in it and too much weight. Hence, that's why we needed so much up. So, Derek, I hope that makes sense. Scrolling on down. Derek says, it looks like there is a lot going on there. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It looks scary, and it does look like, I'm frankly honest, Derek, I'm here looking at it, and it looks like a bit of a bird's nest, and it all does look a little bit scary for the first time around. But it is unbelievably easy.
Inactivity alarm.
Shut up, woman. Sorry, transmitter. It is very, very simple to set up. So let me just quickly go through my notes. We spoke about the transmitter settings. Throttle, ailerons, elevator, rudder, and 2 switches. And I did have some other sliders going on for something which we're not going to set up. Wiring we have spoken about. Okay, there is a very simple step-by-step manual which you can Google. You don't have to buy one. You can just go and Google it and have a look at and again, if you're serious about a Vector, then you're going to go and download that, and you're going to read it twice. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. After that, it is very, very simple to set up, to say the least. It if you get stuck, read the manual. Basic advice, okay, on there. Now, also is that I do have a USB lead going across from my computer into the Vector itself. So that has now been plugged in, and I'm going to type it, and I've downloaded their software, which again is just free to buy off their site. And again, you can download it and actually connect up to it. So just again, Google Eagle Tree Vector software, download it. You don't even need a Vector. You can still go and play with it and see the kind of settings which you get. So with that said, the first thing which we need to do is, and you'll notice the little doodle over there on the right is on a skew, because I've just got the USB lead on there and it really is in there on the piss. Okay. First things which we need to do is choose the airframe. Now, before we go any further, I would like to make the really obvious point, okay? This model doesn't have one prop on it, it's got 2 props on it, and they're of a big size, okay? I have taken the propellers off my model. I'm sure you've heard so many people tell you to do this, and then you thought, and not done it. Seriously, take the propellers off. Never ever had an issue with a Vector, never ever want an issue with propellers spinning on a model, especially when it's here on my desk right next to me, because that would be no fun at all. Right, so with that little health and safety notice over and done with, we need to choose an airframe. So we choose an airframe. Now you'll notice that the Vector does support a whole multitude of multi-rotors. It does traditional fixed wing, which is that one there. An aileron fixed wing, which is what we're going to set ours up to. Or it could be a VTOL, like the Mini Talon XUAV Clouds, or the other one, which I've forgotten right now, which is the Durafly Excalibur. If for whatever reason you wanted to stick a Vector in it, you could do. So we're going to choose aileron fixed wing, and we are going to go and click apply. Now, you have selected aileron fixed wing airframe. Make sure that is correct. I think that's correct. I am looking at our wing right now. There. Okay, so you'll see the warning in there red. Okay, also giving you a warning about the manual. We'll click on OK. Right, after the change in the airframe type, the Vector will ask you to confirm the newly selected airframe next time you power on, but only after the USB is connected. Right, so that's fair enough. So we've chosen the airframe. Okay, so what I'm now going to go and do is disconnect it. So in offline mode, I'm going to reconnect it. Brilliant. Okay, and happy days. So set that up. Oh, right, I do not have, well, I have my transmitter on. I don't have any power connected up. Okay. So we've chosen the right airframe. Now we need to set up our receiver, and setting up our receiver is so easy, to say the least. Let's have a quick look. Phil's been a mention in there. Be careful if you're using TBS RX with S-Bus. The failsafe doesn't work properly. Speaking from bitter experience, Phil, that sounds very, very painful. Okay, and that also highlights, let's learn from Phil's mistake here. Okay, we need to make sure that the failsafe actually works. Okay, so we'll make an important point in a moment. Don't let me forget that one. We'll actually turn the transmitter off and we'll make sure that the failsafe works. Okay, normally that's part of my normal setup. Okay, but with that said, let's plow on. Now I've got a battery. Now remember, I've been disconnected the propellers from here, from the model itself. So brilliant, we're connected up. Okay, so and then let me just make a point. I'll put this back on the screen. So down here, all I've done is just plug a battery in there. That battery which was on my desk, I've just plugged it in. That's all I've been and done. And remember, my props are disconnected. So but now we're going to go and run the receiver wizard, and this receiver wizard is absolutely brilliant. It's a piece of piss to set up something on the flight line using the wizard, using the goggles. You can actually technically set up this model on the flight line. It's really, really great, especially when you've made a bit of a whoopsie. Right, so with that said, so it's giving you a warning on there. Disconnect your motors, click next. We want ours in English. Now, that is actually means American English, so everything is in yards, miles and stuff. Remember, here in the United Kingdom, we're a little bit special. We understand miles per hour in our car, but as far as heights and measurements go, of distance, we know meters. We're really special. Anyway, so I'm going to choose English, but don't be surprised that I change some settings very shortly. So I've clicked next. I want to choose S-Bus, which is what I've been set up. I will just quickly check the receiver. Have I plugged that in the right way round? Yes, Matt, you're not special today. And then click next. Right, choose how the vector will detect whether your receiver is in failsafe for triggering return to home. There we go. So we're going to choose S-Bus. Okay. Now this is this one little light bit is like magic. Okay, because it tells you whether your receiver and the vector is working or not. Can you see that little number just there? Number of channels detected in pulse train 14. My lucky number. Happy days. That means is that there's 14 separate channels which have been picked up by the vector in the pulse train for S-Bus. That's brilliant. You know that you've made a mistake. I'm doing my best not to swear. In my head, I read that out as, or I listened to it as don't make a up in it. So you know that you haven't made a mistake. Is because if it says 0 in there, you've made a whoopsie. Your receiver's not bound, the connector's in the wrong way around, something like that, okay? You chose the wrong pulse train, you chose PPM instead of S-Bus or the other way around or something like that. Okay, so that 14 is really, really good news. Right, Owen, thanks for joining in with us, fella. Right, let's go and click next. Move your mode switch to a different position. So my mode switch was the first one. Remember, that was the one in the top left-hand corner. Okay, so it tells us, move your mode switch to a different position and leave it there.
External module.
Brilliant. Okay, and it says external module because that was the nearest thing which I had in the Amber voice mod. Brilliant. Click next. Brilliant. It's found a channel. You'll see on there it says mode 5. It's channel 5. Right, move your throttle stick all the way up. No. Right. This is where I'm going to put my hands up, okay? And I'm going to tell you, 3 times I set up my last mini Talon on the flight line, and 3 times I had the throttle disable switch enabled, which then meant that the throttle didn't work in return to home, and I couldn't work out what I did wrong. And it was only when I got home, I thought, you plank! That's why it wouldn't work. It's because I had the throttle disarm switch on. So I have a back switch back here which disables the motors or disables the throttle. So we now need to move that into the all the way up position. Okay, so we've done that on our transmitter, and now we are going to click next. Right, move the throttle all the way down. Cope with this. Can you cope with this? You understand why I like their setup wizard? Brilliant. So move. Oh, excuse me. Itchy face. Sorry, it's very warm in here at the moment. Right, move the aileron stick all the way to the left. So we move that all the way to the left, like so. Brilliant, it's picked that one up. Move the elevator stick all the way back. Click next. Move the rudder stick all the way to the left. Right, move your sub mode switch. Can you see how easy this is? Like this is, I wasn't kidding when I said I really like their setup wizard. It makes things so much easier. Right, move your sub mode switch if used to a different position.
Return to launch.
So I've moved that other switch on that side all the way forwards. Okay, and then click next. Right, this is where you can set up one of your knobs if you want to as gain. But I'll give you a heads up, for a very long time I've flown all of my models on 50% gain. So I'm not going to show you that because I don't feel it's actually required. It's only when you become a little bit more experienced with the vector that you might want the gain knob switched up. Okay, so click next. Gain knob not detected. That's fair enough. Okay, brilliant. So now with each serial channel you should have a channel number in the RX monitor, which we do, except for gain. Brilliant. Okay. Outstanding. Click next. Right, now the wizard will learn about your stick throws. Now I tell you what I'm actually going to quickly do, because my model is now in failsafe. I've got those 2 switches coming forwards. Okay, I am actually going to go and press the failsafe button on the receiver. Okay, so that it does kick those 2 buttons in. So I'm just pushing the button Yeah, blinks a nice big bright green at me. So my receiver is now received those settings for fail-safe. Okay, important thing. Right, and now the wizard will learn about your stick throws, fail-safe, and RSS readings. Turn your transmitter off now and click next once done. So turning my transmitter off, left everything as it was. Okay, click next. Turn your transmitter back on and wait for it to bind.
Switch warning.
She'll have a
Return
chat.
to launch. External module. Engines armed. Middle rates.
Finished? Thank you. Right. That has now been and bound. I've got a green light on my receiver and I'm going to click next. Brilliant. Right, move your aileron stick all the way to the left.
High rates.
Whoops. All the way to the left. By the way, oh, I missed that step. I've just put my model in high rates. If you've got multiple rates set in for your ailerons and elevator and things like that, put your transmitter into high rates. Okay. So we've just done. Now we need to do the elevator. So I'm going to pull the elevator stick all the way back. Click next. Move the rudder stick all the way to the left. Click next. Center all your sticks and your throttle to your typical cruising flight position. So I'm going to guess, I'm going to go for like a good 45% on my sticks. It looks like it's almost in the middle. It's just below middle, okay? Because mainly it's an unknown. Normally you would do about a third to 30%, 40% for cruise. So it says 37% in there, whatever. We'll now click next. Now move your throttle stick to your typical climbing speed. So I'm going to go like 70. Oh, I've got 78%. So you'll see the stick's quite far up now. There's my throttle stick. And let's go and click next. Brilliant. Now move your throttle stick all the way down, which I've just been and done, and click next. Wizard complete. Now, boys and girls, was that complicated as we went through? The steps which it took us through, we just had to click the buttons in the right order. Okay, really not very hard. Probably the one thing which wasn't in the list and which I added to my own list just from my own previous experience is that just before we went into failsafe, I had both of those switches coming forwards at the top like we spoke about in the beginning. And as such, that's my failsafe. That's I want the model to come home. So I set up the receiver, I pressed the failsafe button, so that's what the failsafe was going to be. Okay, so that was the one thing which wasn't in there, Wizard, and that's a step which I've been and added in. Full throttle, Brian. It has been known. I tell you what is that I pulse the throttle a lot, and that's one thing which I have noticed. It's a habit which I've picked up from flying 3D out the front. You're always all over the throttle to get the models to stay still in what you're doing. So sometimes it's very big movements, sometimes it's very small movements. And then I have recorded myself on the sticks, and I am very much all over that throttle stick. You can compare it to maybe a quad pilot, where if you fly quads, you are all over that throttle stick in what you're doing. So anyway, I've gone off topic. Let me go and click finish. Outstanding. Look, brilliant. Okay, so how do we know that this is bound and how do we know that it's working? Is that we've got RSSI, it's jumping up and down. If I stick my hand over the top, it goes down 1%. That's really annoying. We can see that its RX status is okay. Now I'm going to move my sticks around. Okay, now it is an L9R, so it is like overwhelming itself. So throttle, I'm moving around. There you go, that's fine. Elevator and throttle all the way up, not an issue. It's all working as we expect. So I move the aileron to the right, then it moves to the right, to the left, and it's blurting itself out. Why is my aileron not going all the way to the right? Anybody just noticed that microsecond setting is quite low on the aileron? Might want to look into that, Matt. Anyway, left, right, happy days. Right. Now, what we are now going to go and do is set up these top two switches. So I'm going to push them both back.
Loiter mode. Stabilize mode.
Back.
Stabilization off. Horizon mode.
Sorry, like I said, I've got Amber mod set up on mine. So the first one which I'm going to set on here is that I want off. Stab off. Okay, remember I said that first switch when it's it back? I want off. I want full control. I want the full Monty. I'm in control. Okay, so stabilizer off. Then I want 2D no hold. Remember, that's just stabilized mode. Okay, and I know there is a stabilized, well, a separate mode on there. I just use 2D no hold. Okay, this next one I want on here is 2D plus sub mode. Okay, so remember, this is now me adding the left switch. I'm going to go off 2D, which is stabilized. Okay, then I'm going to click up to the top one, so it now combines that top switch movement with this one, which is hold. So we are now, so if I click that one and that one's all the way back, that's now 2D plus hold. So that's going to hold the direction, it's going to hold the height. That means that I can now take the goggles off. No, obviously, you wouldn't do this, but you could put the goggles on your head and grab your cup of coffee and have a chat to your mates and rip the piss out of them, and then put the goggles back down and carry on with your flight. And in the meantime, the model's carried on flying in the same direction. The middle one I am going to set up as waypoints. Okay, loiter. That was my bad. We'll choose loiter. And the last one, which is the most important one, is return to home test, which is RTH. And then we are going to go and click on apply. Now, as far as these gains, leave them alone. You do not need to change these gains. I only have had to slightly tweak the gains in very windy conditions with the Mini Talon and in fact I had to tone them down with the clouds because it's a 1.8 meter wingspan model, and it's very much a big fat kitten in the sky. So yeah, you don't really need to play with these, so I'm going to just don't even play with them. Now, one thing which I am going to do is turn my transmitter off. Failsafe. This model's just been in a hit failsafe. Can you see on my screen here in the middle? In failsafe now, yes. Brilliant. That is exactly what you want to be doing. That is the test which we were speaking about, Phil, earlier. You turn your transmitter off. That is like the battery's fallen out of the back of it. You spilled coffee over it. The battery's gone flat. You've gone too far. Whatever reasons.
Engines armed. High rates. Engine off.
Okay, sorry, she's talkative. Is that I now know, you now know, that my model, if it runs out of signal range, it will fail safe. Happy days, thumbs up. That is exactly what I needed to see, and that's also what you needed to see as well. We are just going to have a quick wander around these. You do not need to enable the compass for fixed wing models, but you do need to enable the compass and calibrate it, of course, for quads. Okay, and the reason for that is quads can yaw very, very quickly, whereas fixed wing tend to just plod along in the same direction, and it's fine. Okay, airframe selection is fine. Not going to change any of those settings in there at all. Flight setup, going to leave this alone as well. Advanced, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm leaving that alone as well. I'm after this tab. Right. Select desired safety mode. So when things go wrong, or if things go wrong, return to home. Choose how the vector detects the receiver failsafe, which is S-bus, which is exactly what we set up in the wizard. Right, fly home at this altitude. Right, we have an issue because this is in feet, and I've got no idea what feet is in whatchamacallits. Remember, we had that metric versus English. It should really be American, UK, and rest of the world. Okay, so I want this to return home at, say, 110 meters. So I'm going to type 110 meters to feet into the Googler, which is 360 foot. Okay, now obviously you need to check that with your local laws. You may be able to return higher, you may be able to return lower. Also be aware that the vector has modes like mountain mode as well, stuff which gets very, very deep very, very quickly. Right, so I tell you what I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to click apply there because I want to move to your chat. I've seen there's been quite a bit of chat going on, so I'm going to pause now so we can have a chat about all that chat which is going along right there. So let me go and turn over to that tab. Let's have a quick look on there. All right, there's a little bit of conversation going on about the fail-safe with the crossfire on there. Daytona says, and yes, I've done that loads of times. Brilliant. Phil says, have you tried switching off your transmitter to test return to launch? Not when it's in the sky. If it does it on the ground, it will do it in the sky. I know Dave, who I've flown with, he's done that with his transmitter. It's not somewhere I don't want to go, in short. Again, especially if you're using 433 or similar, is that might cause an issue. So yeah, I'd go careful of that one. If it does it on the ground, it will do it in the sky. That's the simplest way of doing it, okay? And of course, also remember is that you can trigger fail to return to home while you're flying by hitting the return to launch button, okay? And then make sure it comes back at the expected height and then see what it does when it returns, okay? Joe says no launch mode. No launch mode in the Vector. Bit of a gimmick, to be honest. The only model which I struggle with launching is the Clouds because it's so bloody big. It's 1.8 meters, it's got a huge, great big fuselage. And when we're flying things like that, then there's always somebody else with us to give us a hand launching it. And again, that's always one of the best modes of loiter mode or return to home, because you put your model on the ground. Yeah, again, I'm thinking about Andy, for example. He's got a Clouds as well. We'll get him. I'll launch his model for him. He'll go off and fly around, stick his into loiter or whatever, or vice versa with mine. Chuck mine in the sky, get it to loiter, then I'll go and chuck his. And yeah, one of the benefits of loiter. Okay. Phil had a bug with it. Yeah, I know absolutely nothing about that one. So yes, if you're using the Vector and a TBS Crossfire, then obviously when you want to speak to Eagle Tree Systems, because it looks like there's an issue there. By the sounds of it, that sounds like the TBS Crossfire is using non-standard packets in S-Bus, I would guess. So it's something out of the norm. Obviously they'll get that wrapped up pretty quickly. And by the way, I've just went on here and I was about 6 versions newer on their software from the last time which I updated the Vector, which was only a couple of months ago, in short. Brilliant. Alright, Marty's been put in there. Vector Crossfire issue is fixed and it did not affect S-Bus failsafe anyway. Right, so we're getting into a technical question which I know absolutely nothing about. Speak to the guys at Eagle Tree Vector. That's all I can say. But what some of you are saying it's an issue, some of them are saying it's fixed. I don't know. So go and speak to the guys over at Eagle Tree Systems. Right, moving on. The one thing which I've kind of like screwed up upon is that I think I may have, and I'm freely willing to admit this, is that, remember I said about those connectors, is that when I set this wing up, I kind of just like stuffed them in the right places. The motor wire is really obvious because throttle's always throttle, and then remember this wing, it's got 2 motors on it. So I'm using a Y splitter, and if one of the motors needs to be rotated, then I'll just change the wires round on it so that they both spin the right way. And I will calibrate them as... No need to. They're already calibrated, my bad. Now, the one thing which I didn't know is, then again, this goes back if you actually read the manual fully, is that it would tell you in the manual, but the thing I've frankly forgotten, is that I don't know which servos I'm supposed to be sticking in the back of the wing. Okay, so it actually tells me down here, rudder servo, which I don't use, is M1, so I'm not using that. So aileron servo 1, which I assume is not very obvious, is it? 1 is M2, so let's assume the one on the left is, so that's the left wing goes into M2. So I'm going to go and unplug the Vector now. I'm going to get those 2 cables out, like so. Oh, I can unplug it now from the power as well. Right. So we're going to say the left one. You'll have to excuse me looking at my butt there. It's just the way it is at the moment. And I've put that in the wrong one. So that can now go in there. So I'm just moving that back over a touch. So I'll stick that in that one. And also just looking at their wiring diagram, I'm going to put the right wing into M2. Brilliant. Cool beans. That's what I've done. Just swap the 2 connectors over because I couldn't remember which way around they go. And it kind of tells you on there. And again, for the other settings, it tells you too. Right. The next thing which we need to do is to make sure everything works as expected. Okay. And what do I mean by that? That means is that I'm now going to go and plug it from the the vector. I'm just going to put those wires in there. Do I have a bit of tape kicking around? You'll have to give me a minute. I've just had the GPS modules just hanging on there on the top. And I am just going to stick that down and tape that down. Propellers are off. Fantastic. Move the cable up out of the way. Right, transmitter is on. I'm going to move now to full screen. There we go. And I'm going to go and plug this one in. Receiver is connected. Right. So what I've been and got here is going to be a little bit awkward to show you, but I'll give it a punt and see what happens. Okay, so there's the wing in front of me. Okay, now I'm not worried about the trims on here. They're grossly off. Okay, I don't care about the trims. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull back on the sticks, and the surfaces are moving the right way. So elevator is moving the right direction. Now the aileron, so I'm going to move right on the stick. Look, my aileron is moving the wrong way. Okay, so the thing which I now need to do is go into my transmitter and then change the transmitter. I think I'm doing this right from memory. I'm doing this right. So I need to, so that's channel 2. I need to reverse. So I've just flooded it out. That's really helpful. Yeah, so channel 2, go in there, into the outputs. Right, there, up. Oh, and now elevator's running the wrong way round. Right, this is exactly what I had before. It's no big biggie. So I've been in change one thing, I've not been in change the other, and then you just go back through the steps again for the wizard and then set it up again, okay? Now, I'm not going to go and do that with you because it's simply because of the interest of time. All I'm going to do, just to recap the steps which I'm going to go and do, is that I'm then going to go through the RX analysis wizard. Okay, you saw me just moving the sticks in the right direction. Happy days. And until as I move the steps in here so that they then match. Okay, what I will then do is put the model into a stabilize mode, which is 2D no hold, and then I will move the model to the right. Okay, and of course then I'm expecting the I'll move it like this. So I move my model to the right, which is obviously opposite for you. I'll move my model to the right, so I expect that servo to go down and this one to come up. Okay, I'll move it to the left, and I'll expect the reverse to that as well. I'll put the model down, and as such, because the nose is going down, I'll expect the ailerons to come up. And then if I put the model up, then I'll expect the ailerons to go down. Okay, if the model reacts the way which I expect it to do from putting it into a stabilized mode, that's happy days, we are all good to go. Obviously, if it's incorrect, then you change your transmitter, go back through the setup wizard, which again, it's taken me 10-15 minutes to describe that to you, but when it's just me sat there at the desk, at the desk, it takes like 2 minutes. It really does take 2 minutes, because we don't need to press the fail-safe button again. We just go click left, throttle, blah, 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 and next, turn your transmitter off, turn your transmitter back on, choose your cruise position, choose your full throttle position, and ta-da. And then just make sure your fail-safe works, of course, and then make sure the outputs are correct. But remember, you're matching your transmitter to the vector, not the other way around. Okay, so I've been and changed something in there, so we now need to go back and reset the vector and go through the setup wizard again. It does take a couple of times to go through, but it's no biggie. It's not the end of the world. And that is the setup for an FPV flying wing. Now, actually, I've been and missed the coolest part of them all, which is on there. Joe says that was confusing first time. Yes, it was confusing first time, to say the least. On there. One thing which I'm going to pick up is that, I've got the wrong screen. Let me come across to the standard screen. There we go. Right. I've been and come into the OSD setup tab on the left hand side. Okay. And what we're going to do, we're going to set up this on-screen display the way which I like it. I'm here, I'm going to be doing this anyway, so you might as well see the kind of setup which I go for mine. Right, so the first thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to change the speed to miles per hour and distances to meters and altitudes to meters as well. Sorry, distances to feet, okay, and altitudes to meters. That's because here in the United Kingdom, we are special, okay. Change these measurements to whatever makes sense to you, and then I'm going to go and click on apply down here at the bottom. So pack voltage, what I'd like to do is that if you click it on there, you'll see the pack voltage coming on, which is happy days. So pack current is over there, and we've got milliamperes on there. Total milliamperes, now normally I run these, most of my other models with a 5200 pack, so I normally type in 4800 in there to give me a little bit of a buffer. This one's going to be a bit of an unknown, so I'm just going to type in 4000 because I don't know what battery I'm going to be putting in here next, because remember we got this unknown issue as far as the CG goes. I don't want the transmitter voltage and I don't want the receiver voltage. I do want the home arrow, and I do like it up there at the top. What we got on there? GPS ground speed. So that's this little bloke here, okay? And I do like that. And actually, I'm just going to quickly move the RSSI over there and the GPS up there. Oh, hang on. I've done those two the wrong way round. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. I've got slightly different configs on the different models. And you'll see what I've been able to do there is just move these options around. So that one there is the number of satellites, which is the wrong way round. And there we go. Apply. No. Sorry, I'm thinking of a different model. RSSI is the top one. Then I've got the GPS count over there, which is typically when you've started up the model the first time on the flight line. You're waiting for it to pick up satellites, and you can just look in the top left-hand corner, make sure you've got RSSI, and number two, you can see how many satellites which you've got. Climb rate is, I don't ever use it to be honest. Distance to pilot, okay, is at the top there. Now, I'm going to move that down here, like so, because there's also collimative distance, okay, and that's what I have in the bottom right hand corner of my screen. So as I look down in the goggles, I can see how far away I am from myself, which is that setting there, and I can also see a combined distance as well. And I can tell you with the Mini Talon, if you consider that a Mini Talon cruises at say 4 to 5 amps and does 35 to 45 miles an hour, in 40 minutes you can travel, even just pottering around really close to you, that collimative distance is nuts. You can rack up a serious amount of distance even just in one battery. Anyway, coming back, won't be using a temperature sensor, call sign or flight time remaining. Never really got on with that one at all, if I'm honest. Don't make the biggest, so I need to put my hand up, okay? The biggest mistake I have made with any flight controller is I want to set the scene here. It was a beautiful morning. There was mist rolling in, almost a layer of fog, okay? And I had my Mini Talon and I threw it, and the second I let go, the swear words just fell out of me, okay? I'd made the stupidest mistake I could have ever made, okay? Now, I know for a fact having a horizontal horizon is annoying for the vast majority of the time, until that time when you seriously need it, when you're going through cloud or are blinded for whatever reason, okay? Do not disable the horizontal horizon, okay? Keep the simple one, so don't choose none, okay? You want those bars, okay? Because if you're flying through a cloud, or maybe your FPV camera fails, okay, which has happened to Dave, not myself. The camera failed and he was left with the HUD and he flew back on instruments, okay. You can do that because you know where the orientation of the model is by the artificial horizon in the middle. So that morning when I threw the Mini Talon and it climbed, do you think which way I knew the modeler was up? I'm not going to carry on with the rest of that story, but put it this way, I paid for that dearly and had to stomp through a couple of fields to go and find it for an excessive amount of time to actually find it, and thankfully it was found, and that was all my mistake. So please don't make that mistake. Always keep the artificial horizon on, because that one time when you need it, it will be there for you, and that time is when you're blinded by whatever else is going on, which could be cloud or an FPV camera outage of some form, okay? Speed, if you do have a pit-up tube, which I do use on the mini Talon, I also use on the Clouds as well, you would need to tick that, and that basically means the speed dial on the left-hand side is then using the airspeed as well. One thing which you can have is a graphical variometer. That has come in handy. That actually came in handy with fault finding a bad GPS module with one of Dave's vectors, so that can be handy. Radar is centered upon home. That's what I like for mine to be set up on there. And flight timer I also have on there as well. And I also like to show the flight summary. So I've been and chosen all the settings which I like, and I'm going to go and click on apply. Okay. Excuse me. So there we go, that's the on-screen display. Now, there are other funky things which you can do with the Vector, like you can have multiple screens and you can flick through them, and frankly, I've never done that. The thing is that when you first see an on-screen display like that, which you're seeing on the screen, it may look like, oh my god, I got all this stuff, mind in the language, keep it family friendly, Matt, trying to get you all this stuff going on around the out of the screen. The thing is that actually you just see straight through it. You don't notice the horizon, you don't notice any of the other digits and stuff going on the screen, but they're there when you need them. Okay, so you keep looking up to the top left to see what your RSSI strength is, what that value is over there. You see to your right hand side, you see what kind of milliamperes you're using right now is as well. So yeah, it's a bit weird and it does look a bit confusing, but you soon just look straight through any text on the screen, and you'll be surprised how much text you will look through and not see, and then you just focus on flying. But then the thing is that then those details are there for when you need them as well. Right, so let's quickly move into your chat as well. So have a quick look. iForce 2, wouldn't auto level and home direction arrow let you fly back? Absolutely, Chris. So, no, number one, Chris, thank you for joining us. I'll tell you what, let's go and move to the full screen version. Okay, so Chris has been asked on there, wouldn't auto level and home direction arrow let you fly back? So, yes, Chris, absolutely. Okay, you could use the little arrow at the top. Okay, line up your model on target, click 2D hold on there, so 2D and then sub mode hold, so which is the back switch on the right hand side. I could probably turn this lot off now, and in theory the model will come straight back to you. The issue with doing that is that it will keep on going forever, or till you fail safe, or you put some inputs in, because when it comes back home, it doesn't know it's home. You haven't told it to return to home. You've just told it to go in one direction. So generally speaking, return to home would be best. Oh, one other thing as well. If you did 2D hold and you had the direction hold, okay, is that it will return back at whatever height you've been set. Okay, so if you're 10 meters off the ground, it will come back at 10 meters off the ground. Not really ideal. Okay, if you're 500 meters, assuming you're in the US and that's legal to do, or in Ukraine where apparently there are no rules, is that you can fly back at whatever distance you're at, which is great. Okay, whereas if you hit return to home, it will try and go back to, again, depends on the settings which you've got on the Vector, it will come back, and then when it returns home, okay, it goes, way, I'm home, and then it will loiter above your head. Okay, and then it will just carry on, go around in circles until you take control of it again, and then bring it down and land. Or, as I've heard from some stories from other pilots, is that if you can't regain control of the model and it's returned to home, it's come back home, is that you just sit there and you watch the model slowly come down as the power runs out of it, and then it lands whether you like it or not. So Chris, great question, to say the least. So we said, wouldn't auto level on home direction? Yes, it would let you fly back. But, Chris, you need to be put into that situation, and then you realise how important artificial horizon is. So I've kind of answered a different question to what you meant. Yeah, you would do, and you could let go of the sticks, but you still don't know how much the model is getting affected or anything like that. You don't know that you're flying level, okay? Yeah, it's one of those situations, is that when you need the artificial horizon, it is the best thing you have ever seen in your life, okay? It's one of those scenarios. and you don't appreciate how important it is until that second when you need it, and you need it to get home. Absolutely, you could hit 2D no hold, you could hit return to home, and you know the model will come back. You think the model is coming back, but you've got no idea what's going on with the attitude or the position of the actual model in the sky. So you've got sensors, obviously you can see your height, you can see your airspeed, you can see your ground speed and things like that, and your distance back to you, but knowing when your model's level or not, I class that as a critically important factor. So don't really take it from me. The second when you need it, and it annoys. And again, I know why I turned it off. Is because me and Dave, we used to go out and chase each other in the mini talons or in different models, and it would always get in the bloody way. Really annoying, and it would always be in the middle of the screen. You'd never be able to see the other model in front of you, and we'd end up getting too close or overshoot or fall too short. Frustrations, but to be honest, that is. And that was the reason why I turned it off. And then situations changed, and my artificial horizon will never ever get turned off because of previous experience. So really, really good question, Chris. Really good one. It's brilliant. Yes, Lauren, you're absolutely right. It's called a panic moment, and when you need it, brilliant. And yes, Jacob, it is. I think you've hit the nail on the head. They're probably there. Jacob's point there, and it's really easy to forget about the flight controller aids when you start to panic. We've had one of those two brain moments, and the thing is that I've only had to hit return to home twice in serious anger, and when you need it, it brings the model home. Well, again, that's why you test every time you go off and you launch your model. You get it up to a decent height, you test return to home, you make sure your model comes back and then circles over your head. And then you maybe go out and then test it again. So you know that your failsafe works because you tested that on the ground, didn't you? And again, it won't, with the Vector, that you can test the failsafe on the ground. There is a caveat to that. If you've enabled, there's a special mode in the Vector which will allow you to arm below the position of your launch, so that you can maybe fly into a valley. Now, I've forgotten the exact setting. In fact, if you want to know what that setting is, you need to read the manual. And there is a setting which will allow you to fly below your starting level, and then the model will rise up to ground level and then come back above. Okay. If you hit return to home without that in the mode enabled, is that it would just cut power and land wherever it is. Okay, because it's below the position where it started, because remember it uses GPS as the fix, and there's the mode which you need to enable if you want to fly. Say if you're up on the top of a mountain and you want to float down in a valley, for return to home to work effectively to work at all in that scenario, you need to enable that special setting. But it does come with a word of caution, because that does mean that you can arm and you can trigger return to home while the model is on your workbench. And with a model like this, which I've got here, which has got two motors on the back, that would not be very desirable at all, to say the least. Brilliant. So there we go. I've got no idea how long we've been chatting for. I think it's been about an hour. That's actually longer than what I was expecting. But I've tried to kind of cram as many like real world examples as I can. I've kept this kind of like high level as far as the setup as the Vector goes. Your friend, as far as the Vector goes, is the manual. It is 120 pages long. A lot of that is a big menu at the beginning, and a lot of that is to do with quads, which you don't really need. The setup to begin with does look very, very scary. If there's only one thing which you take away from today's live chat on the Eagle Tree Vector and setting it up for a flying wing, is that it's not very scary. It's obviously taken us an hour because we've been chatting about many different topics, and I've tried to add value to this by giving you like some real world examples. But do take away, the setup is very quick. After we've gone live, it's going to take me less than like 2-3 minutes to get this thing set up properly. And then when I go take it to the flight line, I'll be able to I'll manually put in the trim to what I think it should be. And again, I'll make sure my transmitter's zeroed out. I will then take the manual model, I'll fly the model in off, so stabilizer off mode. Okay, I'll fly it around and get it trimmed in. Okay, that's goal number one. Okay, there is another part to this story which you can use the goggles to incorporate the trims. When you're on the flight line before you fly the model, you can double click your flight mode switch. That's why always that one always comes loose. is that you can double click this, and then with the vector you do get an on-screen menu, and then you use your sticks and your rudder stick to go through the menu to select things. It's a bit weird to begin with, but you don't get anything like that. Well, you do kind of get something like Betafly, but the vector system with the vector is unparalleled in what you can do in your on-screen display. So coming back to my point here for us to wrap up, yeah, I'll get my settings set up, then get the movements right, moving the right way, and making sure it works in stabilized mode. When it comes to flying it, like I said, I'll put the trims to where I think they should be. I will then go and fly the model. I will trim the model in. Okay, I don't worry about the vector, I don't worry about stabilization, I don't worry about FPV, anything like that. I just get the model to fly straight. Okay, we land the model in, we put it on the side, we double click our mode switch, go for the on-screen menu, which you can see in your goggles, and then you choose incorporate trims, which I can't remember. I think it's like the third or fourth one down underneath stabilizer settings. You go in there, incorporate trims, okay. Then you launch the model again. So lob it in the sky, fly it around, make sure it's peachy, okay. Then put the goggles on, obviously with a qualified spotter next to you. And then what I find is that you normally need to put some more trim into it so it really does fly straight, because what models look like when they're trimmed on the ground and what they are actually when you can actually see it when you're flying it is typically a whole different thing. So we'll then trim the model in again, and then and only then will we try stabilized mode, and it will be a very, very quick turn it into stabilized mode, because when you've got the stabilization set up incorrectly, and maybe you've got your ailerons or elevons reversed, is the model will spin on you, okay? And the thing is that when you turn stabilized on, you actually want nothing to happen. It sounds so boring. You don't want your model to spin. You don't want your model to go up in the sky or do a bloody great big loop with the clouds. That was the scariest maiden I have ever done. Whoa. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up the XUAV Clouds Maiden on my YouTube channel. Scariest thing I've ever done, because I had the elevator reversed. Anyway, you turn it into a stabilized mode, and you don't want anything to happen at all. You want the model just to be roughly stable. Okay, that's happy days. Now, you can, of course, try return to home then, but just be aware, if you have been to put some trim into your transmitter to get your model to fly straight, the return to home may not work because you haven't incorporated those trims into the vector just yet. So it may be in return to home, but it then thinks that you're putting some stick inputs and overpowering what you're doing. Okay, so don't panic if return to home doesn't work then. Just bring the model in, land it, incorporate the trims, chuck it again, and then it should all be peachy. And what I mean by peachy is that stabilize should work, 2D hold for direction holding, and return should work as well, because everything is now trimmed in. You've been through those 2 or 3 stages where you've got your model trimmed in by eye. You can then take it up via FPV. You get trimmed up by real eyes as a true pilot. And then you can try something like stabilized, but it's not until like the 3rd flight where you've got everything trimmed in, everything working, and then you're good to go. Just pick a sunset and go for it, in short. Obviously staying within the legal limits of your country's requirements. Let's not go that one. Right, so a quick look. Marty Hughes says, but that low level return to home does carry some risk of lost fingers after it is landed. Marty, you can see it in the, sorry, it's that way round. There, Marty, just there, up there somewhere. Absolutely. That special mode, which you will have to look up the name and see the bloody great big warning about, need to go careful with that, because you, like I said, when you bring it back to your bench, it could get powered up. So thank you for put on there. Marty also says, is manual Eagle Tree support are excellent and very responsive. Yeah, when I've needed their support, they've been very useful. They've been a bit crap in a different area, which is actually, in fairness, unrelated to the vector. We won't even go on there. Smooth Virus says Eagle Tree has the best support out of all the different AP OSDs on the market. I agree with you, Smooth. I totally agree with you. You do pay for what you get when it comes to the vector. That's why it's going into this model. It's why it will end up in the full-size Sky Hunter as well. Quickly, again, looking on there. Andy Wood says, Matt, can I ask that you still test with the 5200 pack as you have no more rearward weight? If you change two things at once, we won't know. Yes, absolutely. So, Andy, I will take a collection of packs with me when we go out to fly this one again, so that I have some options in my arsenal. And again, I know to put my hand up on that. Those of you which know the story about the Harrier, is that I do feel that I overloaded the wings, like put too much weight in the model, and that's why you had so much elevator trim in them. And I should have known more. Again, hindsight's beautiful. But next time we take it out, we'll fix it. We will get to the bottom as far as the trim issues go, as far for the Harrier FPV model, which is completely unrelated to the Vector. It's just something which I need to incorporate into the Vector to get it to fly straight in the first place. Right. Daytona FPV, that's why they call it the oh shit switch. Totally. It's the brown switch up there in the top right corner. Brilliant. Let's have a quick look. It's all about the camera. I had an idea for the Harrier. Instead of running two motors, add in an inverted VTOL boom and a single motor. No, I think you're really missing the point as far as the Harrier goes. Again, we're going off topic, so we'll wrap up in a moment. No, this is a twin motor model. So really it needs twin motors. If you were to convert this to a single motor on the back or do something else funky, you'll have to chop off these bit sections here. So you're back to a bloody flying wing. So you might as well go and choose something else, which is more suitable. Maybe like a C1 Chaser or an FX61, which is both of those models are very, very similar price to this one. So if you just want a single motor model, go for an FX61. Or if you're struggling for budget, then a C1 Chaser. A little bit more compact, obviously not as much space as this, but it's certainly doable. I had one for quite a period of time. But no, this is a twin motor model. Use twin motors on it. That's what it's designed for, really designed for. Obviously, I might go on and take the piss a bit and put a third motor on the back, but that's just me. So once I've taken the Vector out of this one, I do foresee that we might have some tri-motor funniness kicking around at some point in the future. But on all seriousness, twin motor model, stick twin motors on it. You wouldn't buy a Bushmill and then just stick one great big fat motor on the nose, would you? You wouldn't do it, would you? So yeah, and again, it's just putting things into perspective. That model is designed for twin motors. The Vector is designed for FPV, stabilization, the whole lot. And I've only just scratched the surface what you can do with the Vector. I really have. All the answers which you may have, all the questions which you may have will be answered in the manual. Okay, and I genuinely mean that. You don't have to own a Vector to play with their software. You don't have to own a Vector to see their guides. Okay, the manual. It is quite a long manual, but it's all in plain English. Okay, it's American English, so they spell one or two things wrong, but we won't hold that against them. But look how, right, audio harness. This cable connects your microphone and is also the audio input for your video transmitter. Where's the audio harness? There we go. How easy is that? Really plain English. And going back to what we were saying earlier, if you'd like to know the difference between a Vector and iNav, I did a separate live episode on that. There's a link to that down in the video description. And on that note, it is time for me to wrap up. So if I have... What was on there? I told my C1... let yours go. Where is it? It's down here. Chris's comment. I told my C1 Chaser that you let yours go and she was inconsolable. I can tell you, it's actually right. We're going way off topic. We will wrap up. The C1 Chaser and the Sonic model F1 Racewing, they have both gone to the new home, which is a really good friend of mine, Andy. And I knew that for a long time he wanted a C1 Chaser. And also, he mentioned numerous times, not only while we're out, but also in the Facebook group as well. He was really looking. He liked the F1 wing, and he has helped me out so many times with so many little things. He's here local to me in Bristol, and they have both gone on to new homes with Andy. And I know they'll be loved, and I know that they'll be flown and abused with Andy as well. So it's not like I've snapped it off, wrapped it around my kneecap and thrown it in the bin because they were not very good. I've been really good today on the language front. This has been very family friendly because I wouldn't wrap it around my kneecap and throw it away. So they have gone on to new homes, so don't feel sad. They've been rehomed in with a family which will look after them and nurture them and go out there and stroke its foam from time to time and take it out for a very gentle ragging. So they've gone off to a very good home from this one. And frankly honest, they needed to go on to a new home because they just weren't being flown. So they've gone to a place where they'll be loved. Alright, anyway, it's time for me to go. All Rifted says, Matt, with iNav, do you set up CLI commands always on your new setups, or do you keep the setup wing over the tab setup? To be honest, I use tabs. There's only the odd couple of settings which you need to put down in the CLI section. Most setups are very, very similar, and again, it's just like the vector. It's what you're used to. I can set up the vector really quite quickly. And it's the same with iNav as well. There's models, all the tabs. Once you know which bits you're looking for and what kind of process you need to go in, you whiz through the interface. That's the thing, is that sometimes, like we saw here with the vector software. Let me go and bring it back up on the screen. It looks really scary. Look at that! Look at all those tick boxes. What the barbecue? It looks rather scary. But actually, in reality, it's not, because you can just tick one on and turn it back. Oh, look, that's the home arrow at the top. Oh, I don't want it in there. I want it in there. Brilliant. And then I just go down there and, well, happy days. It's all kind of like saved, isn't it? It looks scary, but in reality, it's not. It's not at all. Again, it looks scary because it's new. Okay, and you go in here and you go, oh my God, look at all these settings. Oh, wow. What's a gain knob? I need a gain knob. You don't need a gain knob. Anyway. With that said, for myself, Matt, I want to say a massive thank you to you for taking the time to watch this episode. If you have enjoyed this advert-free video on YouTube, do me a favour, hit the thumbs up underneath this video. If you have any questions or comments as far as the Eagle Tree Vector goes, then you can either ask underneath this video, you can contact Eagle Tree Systems directly. Like we said, their support is pretty good. Or you can pop across to the Rag the Nuts Off Facebook group. So there'll be a link to that in the video description for you. Just press show more and you can literally join 2,500 plus cool pilots like me and you in there. And there's pilots which use the vector like myself. There's pilots in there which use iNav, and there's also pilots in there which use PICs and a whole collection of other ones as well. So they know more than what I do, is what I'm trying to say. Facebook group is probably the best place to get help, because you will speak with so many other cool pilots, literally, like me and you. So that is a very big, shameless plug for the FaceBalls group. Good bunch of lads. They have been known to set fire to stuff in that group. I'm very proud of them at the moment. We've had 2 fire posts. One was a lipo on a desk, and the other one was a batch. Was a set of lipos on the flight line. Good lads. Anyway, I'm going way off topic. It is time for me to wrap up. From myself, Matt, a massive thank you to you for taking the time to watch this live episode, and I will see you again shortly. Also, a shameless plug, there's not a live episode going out this evening. There is a new episode going out called The Lawn Dart. Look out for that one. That one will be published later on this evening. So from myself, Matt, cheerios. Right, where's my cursor gone? Come back, cursor. Right, now I really am going. For myself, Matt, cheerios.